Guess we're making a little review about Doki Doki today. I will only be calling it Doki Doki because I hate the word literature club. I hate this word. I can't pronounce it right. I always fumble that. Alright, let's get right into it. The first person you meet in this game is your childhood friend Sayori, who basically says, "Hey, want to join a club where you read poetry and maybe fall in love? I definitely am not hiding an inner tragic life." Yeah, that's basically her pitch. She's your childhood friend since forever, which means she's super comfortable invading your personal space in, let's just say, over-enthusiastic ways. Of course you resist at first, but she makes 3 more persuasive arguments. You're now in a club full of cute girls, congratulations. Upon entering, the first thing you notice is that everyone is ridiculously cute. And the second thing you notice is that they all speak exactly 3 times faster than normal humans would in real life. This makes the dialogue feel frantic, like everyone is sponsored by caffeine. Now, let's meet the cast. There's Monica, the club president, the cool girl everyone notices first. Then there's Yuri, the intelligent one. Then there's Natsuki, the smallest one of the group. She will definitely judging you for sitting in the wrong chair. And Sayori, your best friend and vice president. The club's central activity is writing and sharing poetry. At the end of each club meeting, each member, including the player, yes, writes a poem through a minigame where you choose words from a list. The words you choose affect how each character responds and subtly influences how much time and attention each character receives from you. Now for a while, Act 1 plays almost like a normal school novel. You have casual conversations, plan for an upcoming cultural festival where the club will present their poems and build relationships through dialogue and shared activity. You are able to spend more time with any of the 3 girls, with corresponding interactions and unique scenes for each choice. During all these interactions, you begin to notice subtle details about Sayori's behavior. She is often late to school and seems less energetic in the mornings. Eventually, in a quiet moment away from the others, Sayori opens up in a deeply personal way and reveals that despite her cheerful demeanor, she suffers from clinical depression. She explains that she has been having difficulty getting out of bed and often forces herself to put on a happy face so that others won't worry about her. Sayori's confession gradually moves into something more personal. She tells you that her feelings for you are more than just friendship. She admits that she loves you, revealing that her emotions have been building up for a long time. At this point, the game offers you a choice. You can either tell her that you love her too, or say that you will always be her best friend. No matter which option you choose, the narrative flow continues forward the same tragic outcome, because Sayori's struggle with depression is not solved by a single declaration of affection. The next morning, Sayori does not appear at school as she normally does. Concerned, you try to contact her, but receive no replies. Eventually, you decide to go to her house to check on her well-being. When you enter the room, you discover that she... herself, I can't say that because YouTube will end it. Having taken her own life before morning, the scene is composed in a way that communicates sudden horror. The room is silent, personal belongings untouched. It becomes unmistakably clear that Sayori is dead. This shocking discovery ends Act 1 abruptly. The game crashes, the screen distorts, and you are returned to the main menu. When you start the new game, the narrative restarts, but Sayori is missing. None of the other characters remember her, including Monica, who now tells you that she has always been the president of the literature club. The absence of Sayori from the story and the strange restart suggests that her existence has been somehow erased from the game's narrative's reality after her death. After the traumatic end of Act 1, where Sayori's end shatters the normal structure of the game, the story appears to start again. You return to the main menu, and when the game begins a new session, the familiar elements of the literature club and its settings seem to be in place once more, except that Sayori is no longer present in any form. Her name, sprite, and dialogue have all vanished. and the other characters act as though she never existed. This erase extends to the club's records and tasks, effectively rewriting the whole game's world. Of course, you still attend the club meetings, write poetry, and interact with the other remaining members, Monika, Yuri, and Natsuki. The mechanics of sharing your poems remain largely the same as in Act 1. You write a short piece by selecting words, and the characters react based on their personalities and preferences. However, even early in Act 2, these are subtle clues that this continuation is no longer a simple school visual novel. Actions that have once seemed routine begin to feel forced, eerie, or disjointed, and repeated patterns emerge that make it clear the game is not progressing normally. Throughout Act 2, although the story superficially gives you choices, such as focusing your attention on either Yuri or Natsuki during club activities, these choices ultimately have no meaningful effect on the overall narrative. The game is structured so that the plot presses steadily forward toward the same sequence of events, regardless of your decisions. A design that signals control by an unseen force is within the game. Then there's behavior shifts, especially in Yuri. When Act 1 was quiet and reserved, now displays a much more obsessive and intense behavior. Her affinity for the protagonist, at first a soft interest, now becomes increasingly consuming. In many scenes, her eyes seem to lock onto the protagonist more intensely than ever before. Her dialogue and presence grow more psychologically charged. The script forces interactions with her, even when the player might try to avoid them. This developing intensity foreshadows a dangerous narrative turn as Act 2 shifts decidedly from the simple novel atmosphere to psychological horror. Eventually, and this is absolutely unavoidable, Yuri reaches a point where her attachment becomes overwhelming. She confesses her feelings in a way that escalates far beyond what occurred in Act 1. Regardless of how the player responds to her confession, Yuri stabs herself, inflicting multiple wounds before collapsing. This event takes place in the club room, and the next sequence forces you to remain in the classroom with her body as the time passes over a weekend. Lighting changes, music plays, and Yuri's form visibly decays. This event is presented as a disturbing extended moment that emphasizes the shifts to psychological horror. When Natsuki enters the classroom and sees Yuri's body, she reacts with shock and distress before fleeing the scene. Shortly afterward, Monika enters the classroom and apologizes for the protagonist's boring weekend. Yeah. Before deleting Yuri's and Natsuki's character file completely from the game, removing their sprites, dialogue, presence, and memories from the story. This deletion abruptly ends Act 2 and transitions the game into the next phase. One of the most important moments of Act 3 is Monika's full explanation of everything that has happened to the game up to this point. She reveals that she's been fully self-aware for a long time, that she knows she and the other characters are part of a video game. She explains that because she knows that the world isn't real in the usual sense, she began to try and manipulate it to make the player notice. Monika confirms that she edited the personalities and behaviors of the other characters, including amplifying Sayori's depression and Yuri's obsession, to make them less appealing, hoping that would cause the player to spend more time with her. She deletes the other characters entirely from the game's code, leaving her as the only one left. During Act 3, you cannot save or load the game anymore, and Monika has disabled skip options, effectively trapping you with her dialogue until action is taken. Act 3 ends with the player actively deleting Monika's character file, which triggers Monika's final emotional dialogue, her acceptance of her mistake, and her decision to restore the game without herself. This sets up Act 4, where the main story returns to a more conventional structure, though still influenced by Act 3's revelations, as the other characters reappear and the world continues without Monika. When a new game begins, the player returns to the Literature Club classroom. Sayori, Yuri, and Natsuki are all present and alive. and the club appears to function normally. Monika, however, is completely absent. There is no mention of her, no sprite, and no indication within the story that she ever existed. Sayori is now the club president, a role previously held by Monika. At first, this seemed like a simple change in leadership. Sayori behaves warmly and cheerfully, welcoming the protagonist and expressing happiness that everyone can now spend time together again. However, it soon becomes clear that Sayori has inherited something more than just the title of president. Like Monika before her, Sayori has become self-aware. She knows that the literature club exists inside a game, that the other members are only characters, that the player exists outside this world, that she has some degree over control of the game's structure. Sayori explains that she now understands everything Monika understood, including the pain of knowing that her world is artificial and that her happiness depends on someone outside the game. Sayori explains that she now understands everything Monika understood, including the pain of knowing that the world is artificial. As Sayori speaks, her dialogue becomes increasingly intense. While she still expresses care and kindness, her tone shifts towards control and permanence. She begins to describe a desire to ensure that everyone stays together forever, and that nothing can ever cause pain again. Sayori's reasoning mirrors her defining personality trait from Act 1, an overwhelming desire to make everyone happy, even at the cost of herself or others. With her new awareness, this trait becomes dangerous. She believes that if she can control the game and prevent changes, she can eliminate suffering entirely. At this point, the narrative implies that the cycle is repeating. The player is once again placed in a position where the story is at risk of becoming trapped in an endless loop. But before Sayori can act any further, Monika intervenes, not as a physical presence, but as a voice within the game itself. Despite being deleted, Monika is still able to influence the game one final time. Monika explains that she has come to understand the true nature of the problem. Any character who gains self-awareness in this world will inevitably reach the same conclusion and repeat the same mistakes. She apologizes once more for her actions. She acknowledges that her deleting others did not bring her happiness. It only prolonged suffering. To prevent the cycle from continuing, Monika makes final decision. She deletes Sayori. This time, the deletion is not motivated by jealousy or obsession, but by necessity. Monika removes Sayori to protect both the player and the remaining characters from another cycle of control and despair. After removing Sayori, Monika takes one final step. She deletes the literature class itself. The classroom dissolves. The characters disappear. The game begins removing its own files. There is no reset, no restart, and no continuation of the story. This action ends the literature club permanently, ensuring that no one else can inherit the role of president and repeat the cycle of suffering. As the game deletes itself, the credits begin to roll. A song titled Your Reality, written and performed by Monika, plays in the background. The song reflects Monika's final thought: acceptance of her mistakes, gratitude for the time she shared with the player, an understanding that love without freedom becomes control, and a quiet farewell. During the credits, the game actively deletes its own files from the player's system, reinforcing the idea that the story has reached a true ending. When the credits finish, the game no longer functions normally. Attempting to reopen it leads to an empty or broken state, empathizing that the literature club no longer exists. And this marks the end of the game. I hope, of course, you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments if I can change anything, if you would like to see anything added. I don't know, I'm open to anything. Right, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope I see you in my next video. Goodbye.